How about this? If I keep that cigarette in there, how long does it stay lit for? Let's find out.
2,000 later.
Hell yeah, dude. What is up, brother? And welcome to the 8th video in this series where I go over the dev diaries that were released for Into the Radius 2. In this dev diary, we're going to be talking about some new kinds of loot and a lot of other pretty exciting new details about the game. So let's jump into it, man. Enjoy the video. Boop. In Into the Radius 1, the loot structure looked like this. There were essentially two different categories of loot. The first is disposable loot. These are things that the devs manually scattered across the radius, and once we pick them up in a location, they don't respawn. And the second category of loot is respawnable loot. So this is loot that we come across in different areas of the map, we pick it up, and as soon as we come back to that location after the tide, it should be respawned. This includes things like cleaning equipment, aka toothbrushes. You could even find like a flashlight or some ammo. And then obviously you also have the loot crates that we find around the radius. We got various valuable items, specific items that only are really meant to be sold. This can also include things like artifacts within anomaly fields. And for the most part, this loot structure isn't really going to change. However, there are some specific things that the devs have taken into account, little points of feedback from the Into the Radius community about their likes and dislikes as it relates to loot. Like the fact that Into the Radius players love to find weapons. For example, oh, that's nice. And look at this fucking AUG, dude. This baby is just begging to get spit shined. Alright, and obviously you can't just disregard the big beautiful loot crate over here. Dude, it's an R700. What? That's dope. Look at this. You're not gonna believe this. I have an R700 already. Dope, now I got two.
Let me hear a hell yeah, brother.
So, as you can tell, dude, it is extremely exciting finding guns around the radius. You just saw it, all right, with your own eyes. That was real excitement. I was not expecting to find this R700. And obviously, dude, another element of Into the Radius that we love is being able to crawl around, all right, get our hands dirty and look for some loot, whether it be opening boxes or even ovens to get our hands on a couple of bullets or a sweet, sweet chocolate bar. We do love it, but obviously, dude, to an extent, that shit gets old pretty fucking quick. As soon as it stops becoming really applicable to your progression through the game and you're basically just hoarding a bunch of virtual shit, that's when it starts to get old, all right? We either have to continuously find new stuff with our progressing levels, or we gotta have more ways to find loot. That'd probably spice things up too. Or even just like a game mechanic, you can scrap it and then use all of those scraps to like build an addition onto your fucking base or something like that. You know what I'm saying? A game mechanic that would allow us to use loot that we're otherwise just hoarding. I think that'd be cool. And lastly, if we're being honest here, boys, artifacts as is, yeah, they're kind of boring. Basically, the only thing that they're good for is completing missions and selling. Really, kind of a pain in the fucking ass. You know what I'm saying? They kind of get you a little bit. They kind of piss you off because the good artifacts that are actually worth something are in the most diabolical anomaly fields ever. It's absolutely horrible, dude. But these are all, player issues that are related to loot in Into the Radius 1. So how are the devs going to address these different points of feedback from the players in Into the Radius 2? Well, first of all, let's address the fact that players love finding weapons. Are we going to be able to find new weapons in Into the Radius 2? Weapons in Into the Radius 2 are going to be a pretty integral part of the game's progression, so we're not going to be able to find a bunch of weapons right off the bat out in the radius in Into the Radius 2. And I mean, obviously, some of the most popular mods for Into the Radius right now on Nexus are things like the Stalker mod and the Scavenger mod, which both basically make it possible for you to have a shopless playthrough in the game, where you can just find everything that you need out in the radius. And I mean, personally, I love that, but the devs said that this just is not how they envisioned the game. And that's not to say that finding weapons in Into the Radius 2 is going to be impossible. It definitely is still possible, just maybe not in the way that you would think. The devs are kind of banking on the hope that when they eventually get mod support finished and created for Into the Radius 2, there will be some awesome mod authors out in the community that are going to create mods similar to the Scavenger mod and the Stalker mod for Into the Radius 1, but for Into the Radius 2. So until that comes out, for the most part, part, this is going to be the extent of finding weapons in Into the Radius 2. Firearms that you're going to encounter just lying around are common civilian weapons like pistols and shotguns and various World War II weapons. But weapons with custom modifications, that is only going to be found in special stashes that are difficult to get to. But besides that, it'll pretty much be impossible or maybe just super rare. The devs' reasoning for this is that they want us to progress gradually and slowly get introduced to new content as we progress through the game. They want us to gradually unlock new equipment and try things out, try out different gear, start with simpler weapons, and eventually create some insane guns. But ultimately, you'll feel satisfaction at each stage of this process when you progress to that new level, and then you have access to all these new weapons to try out now. It's a great thing about Into the Radius. You definitely get some time in between your security levels to get to know each gun, as opposed to the alternative, which is like, okay, yeah, you can find every gun just chilling out in the Radius. You'll be done with the game in like a day. One of the most fun parts of this game is just progressing through it. And I mean, ultimately, it makes it so you can appreciate and enjoy the specific guns in each security level, because they're all you have access to for specific periods in the game. And there's going to be future discussion about progression details in future dev diaries. There's also going to be a new type of weapon added into the game, and even though it doesn't really have an official name yet, the devs are currently calling them forgotten weapons. These are basically weapons that have been sitting around the Radius for a super long time and have become corrupted by the Radius. Apparently, you're going to be able to tell visually that these guns are corrupted, and they're going to have special kind of limiting factors about them. For example, these guns are going to be higher level guns that you wouldn't usually be able to find just roaming around the Radius. So I think we're going to get a chance to use and find weapons that are kind of above our current security level. But when we find these guns, they're going to be limited in some capacity. They're going to be a little bit broken. For example, maybe there's like some insanely cool double barrel shotgun that is in a super high security level, but you find it out in the Radius, and maybe the limiting factor is that only one of the barrels on that shotgun can actually be used. So then you chop the damage down the fucking middle for that shotgun, maybe to the point where it's still like a little OP for your current security level, but it's not a game buster. So we're gonna be given a little bit of a forced pacing throughout the game. A couple of dev examples of these forgotten weapons is maybe an AK that can only shoot in single shot, or a Mosin that only holds one bullet in the chamber at a time. Forgotten weapons are also going to be limited with how we can paint them and upgrade them. But like I said, we will still be able to find these higher level weapons that we wouldn't usually have access to. The only thing is we're gonna have to deal with some of the drawbacks. And of course, dude, once you finally get to that higher security level, you'll be able to purchase the full version of these forgotten guns, and you'll have a brand spanking new one with no limits on it. However, at the start of early access for Into the Radius 2, there aren't going to be any forgotten weapons or special unique weapons in loot stashes. So forgotten weapons are going to be added later on during early access. As it pertains to loot around the map, the devs say that they're going to reduce the amount of like cupboards and drawers we gotta swing open to look for loot, because let's be honest here, you can't just walk into a house and Into the Radius and not open up every fucking drawer in that place looking for loose cigarettes. It's literally just not humanly possible. So in Into the Radius 2, the devs say that loot is going to be less scattered everywhere. Rooms in Into the Radius 2 are going to have specific crates, loot crates, for medical supplies, weapons, and ammo. Now, I don't think that the devs are completely getting rid of loot that's just scattered around the floor, in drawers, on tables, stuff like that. They're just reducing the amount. And this is actually kind of an interesting one. The devs added a brand new type of loot to the game. They don't have a name for this one either. It's official, but they're calling it ash. Basically, this ash can be found anywhere. Under a table, on the ceiling, in the toilet. No, I'm kidding. Maybe not in the toilet, but on trees or rocks. And apparently it's gonna kind of have a faint sound to it, so it'll be easily detectable. And I can't wait to see this. When we find it, we're gonna be able to pick it up, and then it'll basically like crumble and get sucked into some kind of device that we have on our glove. So I'm pretty interested to see that animation. It sounds like it's gonna look cool. We're gonna have ash sucking gloves, boys. But apparently there's a limit to the amount of ash that our glove can suck And at the base in the shop's computer, there's going to be a special receiver where all of the ash can be received and sucked out through the hand so that then the resource can now be exchanged for either money or you can use it to modify artifacts. Which leads me to another cool little teaser that the devs have given us in this dev diary. Apparently artifacts are going to have a bigger role in Into the Radius 2, and we're going to be able to upgrade them and modify them with different properties using ash and money. As for how ash is going to play out in early access, there's not going to be any ability to suck ash to suck in ash in early access. I don't know why I can't say that. There isn't going to be any ability to suck in ash to your gloves and upgrade artifacts during early access of Into the Radius 2. The items themselves will apparently be available, so we'll be able to collect them, keep them in our backpacks if we want, or even sell them. But we will not be able to suck. The next dev diary is planned to come out in like 2 weeks. But what I'm super interested in hearing is what you guys think about how looting and weapons are going to be structured in Into the Radius 2. Are you guys a fan of this paced out looting and access to weapons as we progress through the game? Or did you guys want the game to be like the Scavenger and Stalker mods where all of the weapons are accessible right off the bat out in the radius? I'm super interested to hear what you guys' opinions are on that. Also, what do you guys think about this new ash mechanic? I think it's pretty exciting. It's honestly kind of interesting that it's going to be something you can collect using your gloves, and then you can upgrade artifacts using ash, which makes my brain then think, well, what are going to be these special properties that the artifacts have? It would be super cool if it was like, oh, this artifact gives you like a 50% reduction in damage from explosives, or this artifact makes it so you can have a double jump. That'd be hilarious. You know what I really fucking want in Into the Radius 2? I want a jetpack, dude. Because let's be honest, bro. It would totally be lore accurate. When at any stage, post-industrial revolution, were humans not actively working on some kind of fucking jetpack? I guarantee you, bro. Put it in Into the Radius 2 devs. Put it in the game! At least I feel like that'd be lore accurate. I'm also pretty interested to see what these forgotten weapons are going to look like. Like the devs literally said in the dev diary, these are going to be corrupted by the radius. Brother, when you say don't just throw around the word corrupted, all right? That shit's got some weight to it, you know what I'm saying? When I envision a corrupted weapon, corrupted by the radius, I envision something that fucking borderline has a heartbeat, brother. My mind is going crazy with what a forgotten weapon could look like. Obviously, worst case scenario, forgotten weapons just end up looking like what degraded weapons look like in Into the Radius 1, which is basically they just look rusty, grimy, and they got a bunch of blemishes all over them. But that's not what I envision for a forgotten weapon that has been corrupted by the radius. That sounds like it needs to have such a visual impact just based off that description. Anyways, my dudes, that is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed this one. I'm pretty pumped to see what Ash is going to really be like in Into the Radius 2. Shout out to the fucking boys. If you don't have a membership, please consider getting one. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'm probably gonna see you again on Sunday. So until then, I'll see you guys later.